It's not advancing. Bob, I'm not advancing. Not going forward here, Bob.
So oftentimes what happens here is you will be looking at your Zoom when you have to be looking at the original video presentation. So if you know how to shrink your Zoom and then tap onto, there you go, now you're advancing.
Okay, so I have to push a different button. I hadn't found that button.
That's
all right.
IT support. I'm here for you.
Very much. Anchoring questions to consider. The main idea behind this chapter on anchoring focuses on planning ahead. So when you decide you're going to anchor your sailboat or your motorboat, you need to consider these 6 things. And they're pretty straightforward. So I'm not going to read them to you because I have a lot of slides. And you have to remember that the difference between the paper anchoring and actually doing it on a vessel for crew training is not different. It's just written up different. Okay, so where did we go here? Now I can't, oh, there we go. First thing, you have to consider the type of bottom that you're going to anchor in your plan, where you're going, and then you look at the chart and you figure out what kind of bottom it is. And then there are all kinds of different names for these anchors: Danforth, Plow, Delta, Bruce, Max, all kinds of names. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each kind of these, including the North Hill and the Mushroom. So on the navigation chart, you're going to pre-plan where you're going to anchor, and by looking at the chart, you will find out if it's a hard bottom or rocky, gravel, sand, and mud. Now, there are a couple of things you have to remember about anchoring. You've stored the anchor, you're getting ready to anchor in a specific area, you have to get the anchor out. And part of it is to make sure that the anchor is ready for immediate use. And we're going to talk about some of the terms. One of them is rode. The other one is the idea that your anchor could be free or entangled or fouled. And it could be the line, or the actual anchor could be entangled in the line or entangled in the grass, or it can be free. Now, what do you want to do to anchor? Well, you want the boat to hold where you put it. It's pretty straightforward. Implies that the anchor must stay where you put it. And you want it to dig in and hold, and you want to select the anchor style according to what kind of bottom you're going to anchor in. Now, here at Lake Michigan, our seas are really wind determined as opposed to tide determined. But we had a big change in Lake Michigan over this weekend, because on Thursday it was glassy smooth. On Friday there were 3-foot waves, and on Saturday they were 10-foot waves. And today, you know, we have small craft warnings. How big of an anchor will you think you'll need? Now, part of it is a perception of the effectiveness of the anchor. Is it all about the weight, or is it about the way it digs in to whatever bottom you're anchoring in? You don't need a really big anchor if you have a 12-foot boat and you want to anchor it. You know, when I was a child, we had a 12-foot rowboat, and we used a coffee urn that we had filled with concrete and rocks. It worked great. And but again, we were little children, and we did things our way instead of the auxiliary way. So when you think about your anchor, you think about the bottom and what size boat you have. Anchors have holding powers depending on the design of the anchor. Excuse me. They're made from aluminum, steel, cast iron, or bronze. Now, the design is set up to dig in. And that means to dig into the bottom without turning over or flipping or sliding along the bottom. Now, you don't want it to foul on anything. And then you'd kind of like it to be maintenance free so that when you actually pull the anchor out of the water and you're bringing it up to the deck of your boat, you don't want it to be required that you have to screw it back together or firmly remove any grass or mud or rocks. So there are a couple of different types of anchors. We've got the plow and the Danforth and the navy and the mushroom. And then you've got a yachtsman and a grapnel and the other one down there, I can't see the name. But these are the pictures that are in your book. And what I'd like to talk about is the different styles that we have and what you can use them for. So one of the types of anchors they talk about is a max. And so it's sold by a certain company. That's the trade name. And this is what it looks like. It's a stainless steel or galvanized steel. And it's a trough, a plow design. So it's for boats approximately 13 to 50 feet. And you can see that it's got an eyelet on the left side of the picture, and then it has a very sharp point to dig in, and it has some flutes to help when it actually digs in to go deeper. Now, this is a grapnels, and it's made to get smaller. And it's for a small boat under 16 foot. And there is an eyelet, an eye for you attaching the anchor line. It's usually galvanized steel. It has a collar that rides up the shank, okay? And then the flutes fold in, so it becomes much smaller. And it's designed for small crafts. And it can dig into sand or mud. It can get into rocky areas because the flutes move. Now, this is a North Hill anchor. It's really lightweight. And when I looked up this anchor, I wasn't familiar with it. So I went online and looked it up and stole these pictures. And it's galvanized steel. And the one that I have pictured is an overall height of 26 inches. And on the left, as stored, it's all folded up and it's real small with an eye at the top. And then at the very bottom, you have the hinges that are hidden in the first picture on the left, but down at the bottom left, you can see that the sides, the flutes actually fall out. And then on the right, upper right, you can see how it looks. It kind of looks like a traditional anchor in a way. And then it has two side flutes. And then this is the bottom view where it is used so that it can collapse when it needs to collapse. But again, this is for an airplane, a seaplane. Now, who's going to handle the anchor for your boat? You've got to look at your crew. And then you have to look at the physical and abilities of the crew to see, hear, actually follow your lead and do the anchoring according to how you would like it done. So they're all different kinds. Now we've seen a couple different ones. We've seen the grapnels and we've seen the North Hill. And I showed you a couple of pictures of the mushroom. And one of the things you'll see is the yachtsman anchor. This is on the far left. And that yachtsman anchor is one that has been around for millions of years. You know, they were using them when they had wooden boats with masts, and they can be pretty large, or just, you know, maybe 40 inches overall. So here's the Danforth and the plow, And then we have at the very bottom, they identify the flutes and the shank and the ring and the crown and the arm. So one of the things is there's specific names for each kind of these anchors and how they actually deploy from a windlass or just by being dropped overboard by the crew member. I've used the Danforth many times for vessels that are under 30 feet, and it hinges on the flutes, and it actually digs in, and it works very well for a small boat in sandy soil. The yachtsman anchor is really something that enables you to remain oriented as long as it holds. And as long as it's not broken by the incorrect tension on the road. Okay, so you don't want the shank to rise too high. You want it to sit very low in the way the road goes out, or the anchor line goes out from the bow of your boat. This is antiquated, but it's still an efficient anchor. And so they don't work well in grass. And you have to remember that there's all these different types. Now, fortress anchor, I couldn't find an example of to show you what it looks like, but it's made of lightweight aluminum. And because of that, you're going to have a small light boat. And you want to make sure when you deploy that anchor that it doesn't bend. The Danforth made out of steel or aluminum, and it's got great holding power. The plow, that one sometimes you'll see on larger vessels, and they'll have a windlass, and they'll actually deploy the anchor from the bow of the boat by pushing a button in the cabin of the boat. And then you can have a Bruce, which is developed for offshore oil rigs. And sometimes it can be scaled down for smaller boats. So here's an example of a Bruce. Now, this is a 316 stainless steel. This anchor is very expensive, and it tends not to corrode, but it also, because it's stainless steel, it can't be submerged forever. It has to come up into air to avoid corroding stainless steel. Now, when I looked at the Bruce anchor on the internet, they had 20 kilogram, 40 kilograms, 2.2 pounds equals a kilogram. So this is a 50-pound anchor. So if you're going to hand deploy this, you're not going to use a small woman like me to do this. You're going to need somebody who can pick up 50 pounds and control it and actually drop it over the side of the gunnel without smacking the gunnel or the hull of your boat. So this is an anchor for a large vessel, and it's mainly used for 46 feet and greater working boats. Now, there's a kedge, and one of the things we use kedge as a verb, and it's the way that you would kedge something. So pretend that you're in a large boat and you send a small little boat, a little runabout out with a line, and they're going to put the anchor out away from you. And so they're going to take the anchor line and go out in a small boat and then deploy the anchor. And they use this for getting off of a sandbar or kedging. There's a couple other things here. The Navy, not for small boats, and the grapnels, not recommended for small boats, but it's good for rocks. Now, here's how the kedge anchor looks. One of the things that we do in the Coast Guard is we define terms. And so historically, the kedge anchor looked just like the historical anchor. And then this is an anchor that is made in New Zealand on the right. And it looks very much like the Danforth, but it's made for kedging. So if you're going to kedge, maybe your anchoring location has not a lot of room for you to swing the boat around the anchor. Now, in the presentation, we don't talk about locating your boat on the navigation chart and then seeing it swing. But if you're not going to be able to swing, like there are other boats there, or maybe there are anchoring buoys, you'll want to be sure that you have enough room so that you don't run into shore or run into another boat. And this kedge anchor is used for that purpose, to hold in strong winds. Now, there are folding types. There's the North Hill, like it's a folding type. And then we have a mushroom. Now, I've seen a lot of people use mushrooms, canoes, kayaks, little dinghies, and they're very popular. Sometimes they're less than 10 pounds. And the picture I showed earlier, it looks like an upside down mushroom with an eyelet. Now, as you go to a permanent mooring, like would be available at a state park or national park, that mooring is going to have a mushroom anchor, and then it's going to have a float for you to moor to. So now we want to talk about the actual anchoring line. One of the things is that, the whole system is set up so that you have one end of the line attached to the anchor and the other end attached to a cleat. You don't want to be in a situation where you have the anchor attached to a line and the other end of the line isn't attached. And so the whole collection of the anchor, the line, and a chain, or some combination of a chain and a synthetic, is called the anchor rode, R-O-D-E. Now, the rode usually is a twisted or a double braided nylon. And the chain makes a good rode if you use a chain the entire length from where it's attached to the boat all the way to it's attached to the anchor. That's pretty much a commercial anchor, but it's not convenient for a recreational boat, or it's just way too heavy. So they like to use double braided nylon because it has an elastic quality. It stretches, it'll take a stress load in heavy seas, but it's also subjected to degradation due to sunlight. So you have to store it outside of direct sunlight. Now, the doubles braided nylon is usually flaked, and you don't want to have it take a set, because the nylon will do that, and you don't want it to chafe. So that's why they like the double braided nylon as the choice for recreational boaters between the anchor and the chain for the anchor line. Now, so when you think about a chain for heavy coral or heavy rock areas, that seems to be the best, because the chain won't be compromised by chafing on the sharp coral or rocks. So there are three types of chain: BB, proof coil, high test chain. High test chain is claimed to be the best of the common ones used. And the combination of the nylon with 6 to 8 feet of chain and the nylon is attached to the anchor seems to be the ideal combination. So a BBB chain is a galvanized chain. And this one is supposed to bend before it breaks. And it's made of low carbon steel, and it has short, compact links. Now, the BBB is zinc plated. The proof coil is hot dip galvanized, and it's a low carbon steel. Now, a low carbon steel chemically is the same of the two chains, but the difference in the galvanizing, now the hot dip, the zinc coating tends to be millimeters thick, and the zinc plate needs to be like a 1/10 of a millimeter thick. So when you look at the hot dip galvanized, it's going to look like it's coated with a fluffy zinc, and it's going to have irregular areas along the chain length where the plating is all going to be smooth. Now, in the upper right picture, just above the P in zinc plate, you'll see where each chain is put together. And this is done on a machine. There's an actual joint of where the chain link comes together and is fused to make a butt joint. So you can see it in the picture right above the P in zinc plate. It's kind of obvious. Now, when you get to the high test, this is the best because it's a high carbon magnesium steel alloy, and it's a different steel, and it has a high weight to working load ratio. Now, this is zinc plated, so you can see in the blow up of the picture that it looks like just a coating of paint. Actually, they electroplate it, and then you can see where they take the links and they join them together and fuse them and do a butt joint so that the actual steel melts together in that butt joint and becomes one. And so the diameter is a 3/8 inch diameter, and this chain happens to be 66 feet long. Now, it's a proof coil chain, and it has a working load of 5,400 pounds. All right, and that is a tremendous amount of strength for a chain. And you have to be careful where you use this type of chain because it's heavy, and you can't just put it on any kind of winch. So one of the things that I have never done, I will admit it, I have never actually assembled an anchor line, but they talk about how you should do it in this part of the lecture. I've never done this. I know people go and buy them, and they're handed to them, and they go and they secure the chain into the boat, and excuse me, they chain the line, the nylon double braided line, to the boat and the chain to their anchor. But they use an eye splice and a thimble. You can use a bowline, but the main purpose of attaching your anchor line is so that you don't lose the anchor when it's deployed. And all fittings go through a system of being through bolted with backed up plates. That's your cleats and your Samson posts, your bits and your chocks. The objective of anchoring is to keep the boat's position stationary. So there's two ways to lose your position at anchor. The anchor comes loose from the bottom and you begin to drag the anchor or drift. The other way is that the fittings that are holding the anchoring line are pulled out from your boat, and the fittings themselves can go overboard. You could lose the whole thing, or they tend to just erupt from the fiberglass from the deck of the boat, and they fail. So this is two ways you can lose your position. So one of the things that they try to suggest to mariners is that you do the scope. So they're using an old-fashioned anchor in this picture. There's one at the bottom left and one in the bottom center. That's the anchor with the chain and then the nylon line tied up to the bow of your bay. So they want to calculate the scope. The satisfactory scope, a 7-to-1, includes the length of the line plus the height of the bow. So one of the things that happens with people routinely is that their scope is decreased because they're only considering the depth of the water. So the blue arrow here is the depth. And so they say, oh, it's 10 feet. I need 100 feet of anchor line. Well, they've got to calculate it's 10 feet of depth plus the height of the bow. And again, that is specific to each boat. So it's the height of the bow plus the depth to tell you how long you have to have the scope. And 5-to-1 is the minimum scope, but the best scope to reduce the tension and stress on your anchor line is 7-to-1. So here's the way they do the calculation for the anchor rode. They take the length, that's the length from where you cleat it off on the bow to the end of the anchor, and plus the height of the bow above the water. So you have the rode length and the bow height plus the height above the water. And so they do the calculation. You can see it here in number 1. You should have a minimum of 5-to-1. So if you have 80 feet plus 10 feet of water, you think you have it, but you really don't, because you have 3 feet of height between the bow and the water line. So it's 80 divided by 13. And that's not enough. So you need more line. And like many of the Coast Guard auxiliary classes, it's not a tough mathematical equation. It's just you have to remember to include all the items in the equation. So if your scope is too low, 5-to-1, 4-to-1, 3-to-1, you're going to drag. Okay? You're not going to hold that anchor. If your anchor line is 7-to-1, you're going to more than likely hold that line. So let's go over the picture again. The bow height is dependent on what kind of boat you have and how it rides in the water. The depth you can get off your depth meter, or you can get off the chart. And then you want to put the anchor down and you want to make sure you know your swing. Okay, that's for just one anchor. And you want to make sure if your swing is so long, just think of it as the radius of a circle. If you go on to shore, that's not a good place to anchor. So you look at this length, which is the scope, and make sure you can swing. And that is kind of seaman sense. So how long should the anchor line be? Well, people who have 100 feet don't have a long enough anchor line. They're going to need 200 feet. And they're going to need the special type of nylon line along with the anchor for the bottom they plan to anchor in. So every time someone says, well, if you do a vessel safety check and they say, you got an anchor? Yeah, I got an anchor. You got an anchor, a second anchor? Well, how long is the second anchor? How long is the primary anchor? It all depends on where they're going and how high the bow of the boat is from the water line. Now, this is a way to mark the anchor line with cable markers. Sometimes I've seen in the marinas, they sell the anchor line with the chain already attached and the cable markers in it. Okay, you can mark this line yourself. You can choose an easy length to put a little marker on each one. Now, this is a permanent mooring. It has the large mushroom anchor. This is much bigger than you would use on a canoe or a little rowboat. This mushroom anchor is like 200 pounds, and it's galvanized steel. And it has a cable or a chain to the mooring buoy, and then they have the pickup float. Sometimes the pickup float is not present. Many times it is, especially when you're in let's say you're down at Monroe Harbor. They don't have a pickup float. They just have the mushroom anchor. So you would moor right to the anchor. And I've seen this in a state park when I was vacationing on a sailboat, and we moored to the pickup anchor, the pickup float, and not to the mooring buoy. Here's where we go down to the planning. Use your chart to pick your anchoring. Use your chart, use your chart, use your chart. You want to pick a bottom that doesn't have loose sand, mud, heavy grass. You want to anchor with your bow into the wind. Okay, and then you want to have it into the wind, so if you're getting underway, you're already presented for being able to get out. You know, when everything goes wrong and you realize you have to get underway quickly because of the anchor not holding or an emergency, and you have to go, or you want to get away from the other boats in that area, you have to be bow into the wind so that you're ready to go. And you want to have as much lee as possible in case the weather changed. Now, you have to keep in mind that you can rotate 360 degrees around that anchor, day or night. You want to make sure you don't run into anything, another boater, a pier, the rocks, the actual beach. Now, you can use your GPS to sort of figure out your range of how long that radius will be of the circle from your road. And you could figure out where you could go as a 360 rotation. Now, if you already have vessels moored close to you, you don't want to swing and run into them. You want to make sure your swing 360 does not bring you into any of their swing, and that would be a good spot. Now, letting go the anchor. You have to do a couple of different things. First of all, the pilot of the boat or the captain of the boat and the mate, first mate that's on the bow to do this anchor, has to get in connection so they can talk to each other. I've seen, just recently, I've seen people use walkie-talkies, head-mounted earphones and a mouthpiece to talk to each other, because the boat, the recreational vehicle, was so large that they just, the vessel was too big to yell. They didn't want to yell. They just talked quietly into their setup. And you want to make sure when you do let the anchor go that you can it's fastened to the deck. You don't want the line to just run out of the glass, wind glass, and then all of a sudden you don't have any hold on the anchor line. So the good sailor gets everything ready. And then you want to avoid fouling. So you start to drop the anchor, and then you can drop it to the base of you know how deep it is because of the chart. You drop it down to the bottom, and then you slowly reverse your engine and let it actually catch. And you can feel it catch on the bottom. And you want to prevent fouling, and you want to set the anchor. And that's when the flutes dig in to the sand or the mud or the gravelly bottom, you actually can feel it grab and give you some resistance. And this is a trial and error and a feel. So recreational boaters need to practice this. And the road is paid out until you get to your pre-selected mark of a road of 7-to-1, not 5-to-1, never below 5-to-1. You know how much you paid out, so you have a marker. And then you do this until the captain's satisfied. Now, one of the things that you have is you have to know by anchor watch if you're drifting or not. So you can take at 45-degree angles. It gives you a 90-degree viewpoint. You can pick out two items, one at 45 degrees from the bow, another at another 45, where you can sight those to see if you're drifting. And at anchor, someone is responsible for the anchor watch. Now, the next thing you want to do is, because you're at anchor and you've chosen these ranges, if you're going to leave because the anchor drives or you want to go home, that's another reason to leave. Or let's say the storm is coming and you want to go home, you are prepared to get underway immediately. And you want to avoid collision at all cost. And if you let out an additional scope, you've got to make sure it holds. So you want to bring the bow back into the wind to ease the strain on the road before you start raising the anchor. Now, I've never seen a sentinel, but it can be tethered there so that you know exactly how far down on the road you are. You can see it sag. Now, if you're heavy anchor chain, if you have a heavy and a long length, you can do the same thing with that. And sometimes people use buoys. I've never seen anyone anchor around Lake Michigan with an anchor buoy that they displayed or dispensed from the bow of their own boat. So these are things they make as a suggestion. One of the things that happens is you need to make sure that you want to rig your anchor before you before you actually release it. And you can run a heavy length of chain down the road, and you can do all these things. Now, I personally have never done that. I've never anchored in heavy clay. And because we're not tidal, we're not going to ever wait in Lake Michigan for low water to get out of a heavy clay. Because the anchor digs into the heavy clay. Now you've got heavy clay on the flutes of the anchor, and you're going to have to wash all that off. It'll be very hard to pull that anchor up. You can move the boat over the anchor and try to release it that way. Oops. So I have something in the center. I don't know how to get rid of that. Okay, so I don't know what to do. Bob?
Is it something you can X out of? I'm not sure what you're looking at there.
It's a participant list.
Go ahead in the upper right-hand corner of that without hitting the big red X in the upper right-hand corner. Go in the upper right-hand corner and see if it gives you an X to X out of the participant list. If somehow you got kicked out, you could just come right back on and restart, but see if you can go in the upper right-hand corner.
It's gone now. Thank you.
Oh, good. You're welcome.
Okay, so when you want to get underway with, and you're taking the anchor up, you're pulling the anchor, anchor's up. You want to have your mainsail up for a sailboat, but you want to have your engine going on that sailboat also. And if you're not a sailboat, you're going to be a motorboat. So you have your sail up, but your engine's running, so you're a motorboat. And if you are not a sailboat, then your engine's running anyway. You want to have control of your vessel. And you want to start to bring the anchor line up by advancing towards where the actual anchor is put into the mud, the rocks, the sand, and then you can bring it up. And there's a whipping process where you snap the line to try to get any of the seaweed or debris off of it. And the idea is once you get the actual anchor and all the anchor line on the deck of the boat, you want to make sure it's debris free. And they kind of like to keep the nylon line dry. And the anchor has to stay off the hull of the boat. You don't want to pull the anchor up and then have it off the gunnel, the cleat on the gunnel, and then all of a sudden it smacks the hull of the boat. That's something you want to avoid. So let's say you're here at Lake Michigan and you're at the pin and you want to anchor and you need 2 anchors. Or there's a storm coming and you want to have 2 anchors to make sure that your boat doesn't swing. So that's where you have 2 anchors, one on the bow, one on the stern. The main anchor is on the bow and your bow is in to the wind. So you have to be careful when you do this. And you want to make sure when you actually really need to do this, you've already practiced before you're actually doing 2 anchors so that you know how your boat responds. Okay, now you want to make sure when you do this, you're only going to move 180 degrees instead of 360. All right. And you've got to have 2 roads. But most of the time, if you're going to do this, the depth of the water doesn't change that much. Okay. Now, one of the things you want to do is never dock on the weather side, because you can run in to the actual pier because of the weather. Now, there's a lot of rafting being done in Chicagoland, and I did not know this. All right, I didn't think about this. I've seen a lot of boats rafting off of the beach where I live, and Peggy Osterman Beach, and there's 6 boats rafted together. And I never thought, how many anchors do they actually put out? I know they put, the boats are close together. And I know they put, now I can't think of the word, buoys in between them so they don't smash. So one of the things is that if you're going to raft, you need more than 1 anchor. And for sailboats, you've got to make sure the rigging is aloft and not going to swing and hit another boat that you're rafted up to.
Those fenders help a lot. The fenders are helpful.
Fenders, that's the word. I couldn't remember the fenders. It's a senior moment. Sorry about that. Now, when you think about rafting, when I observe the rafted boats, even in the playpen, they all disengage and leave at dusk. And if they're going to anchor overnight, which is very rare at the Kathy Osterman Beach, they would do their own anchoring and start out to decide what the raft should be and what the depth should be and where they're going to swing. Now, if you're going to anchor at night, don't forget you have an anchor light. And you don't want to drift at night, of course, because you have an anchor watch. Someone is on watch for that anchoring, and they're observing their 245-degree marks to see if you're actually drifting. So you have an anchor light. Okay, but now if you're anchored in the daytime, even rafted up, you should have the single black ball day shape from the crow's nest if you're a sailboat or your masthead. This is something a lot of recreational boaters do not do. If they raft up, they never display their black ball day shape. And if you're going to the fireworks by Navy Pier, most of the boats don't really anchor. They just are in sort of neutral and they float around. But if they do anchor, they have to put their anchoring light on. All right. So this is a little detail a lot of people don't remember to do in the daytime with the single black ball day shape from the crow's nest of a sailboat or a masthead. Okay, you don't want to leave your lines out in the sunshine. You want them to dry, but you don't want to leave them out. And you want to store them in a cool, dry place. And remember, flemish it, flake it, coil it. Don't cord it. Okay, and never just take it as a mass of like snake-like thing and dump it in to the inside the cabin cruiser on one of the beds. You don't want to lump it up. So cording it means gather it in a lumping and throwing it in a box. And you want to flemish it, flake it, coil it. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. And I'm not quite at an hour, but I wanted to go over the questions for the review. And then I also went over the questions in the student manual that we can do. That's okay, Bob, right? All right.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
all right. I have names of people, but I don't really. Well, let's start with Richard. Okay. Richard, you're the first one on my list after Bob. So the most widely used material for the anchor line is?
Oh, that would be nylon.
Yes. All gear taken collectively that lies between the boat and its anchor is called the, let's go for Michael Burnett.
That would be the road.
Yes. Let's go for Richard Hurd. The lightweight type anchor is excellent on blank and sand bottoms.
You called on Richard once already. Are you picking on him?
That would be mud too, so that's fine.
Okay. The chain is designated by, this is Jacob. The chain is designated by the blank of the material in the links.
I'm sorry, I'd like to pass this question.
Okay, it's called the diameter.
Diameter. Thank you.
Okay. 5, the ideal road for most average conditions is a combination of blank and a short length less than a fathom of chain.
You want Tuesday to answer that? You want to call on Tuesday?
Yes, Tuesday P. Brooks.
Okay, I have a combination of nylon and a short length. No, yeah, and a short length. Mhm.
Yes, right, correct. Mandava is next. Number 6, when anchoring under favorable weather and sea conditions and using nylon line, a scope of
5 to 1, maybe
is
considered a minimum.
minimum. Yes. Okay, now here's a, I put in this reddish color. Think about this question. This is an example of some of the questions in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and it tests your ability to take tests and how smart you are in your ability to take the test. Now, one of the things is we know 5 to 3 is not scope. So you can eliminate A. 4 to 8 isn't a scope either. So now you're down to C and D. Okay, so you've eliminated 2 of the 4 choices. Now, instead of having, to pick 1 out of 4, you're picking 1 out of 2. That increases your chance, if you don't know the answer and you're guessing, of reducing your probability of getting it wrong. Okay.
You can see that there's a typo here with C and D both being the same answer, but that won't happen to you on the test. There are some other errors in the test, but it's mostly good.
Yeah, and one of the things is the minimum, the scope, considered a minimum. And in our lesson, we had 5 to 1. The maximum, let's have Alice Williams tell me, what's the maximum? What's the ideal maximum?
The ideal maximum is either 7 to 1 is
Yes.
8 to 1
Yes.
though is another one that they gave.
Yes, that's great. Now, when in anchoring, let's go with Jim Whipple. When anchoring, the anchor should blank be lowered when the boat has any way on.
You there, Jim?
Ramesh? How about-
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Jim.
Should correct answer is never.
Okay,
And Rhonda, if you click on the question mark next to the correct answer, it'll say yes. So
okay, I didn't do that. Okay, we now have Ramesh. Is Ramesh ready? If the anchor drags, the first step in trying to get it to hold is to,
You back the boat a little bit more to see if it's holding. And you
that's not one of the
pay
three
out
answers now.
you pay out a little bit more line.
That's take in scope, pay out a little bit more line.
good.
Yes.
You click right on that. Yep. Right like that. No, click on. Yep.
It didn't do anything. It didn't do anything. It just came to the next question.
Sorry.
Pay more line. Okay. That was the answer to number 8. When chocks, cleats, and other fittings are used on deck, they must be blank and reinforced with a strong backing plate.
Steve Chorus.
Yes.
Be through bolted.
A, yes. Okay, here's
You're
number
B.
10. Let's go with Dan Lipton. The type of anchor traditionally used for permanent moorings is?
Mushroom anchor.
Yes, mushroom. That's the end of chapter 9. Do you want to do the study questions?
Absolutely. Did you want to go through them? You want me to run through them?
You can, I got it. I answered them. I know it doesn't seem like I did, but I did.
Very good. I actually, I think that was every one of the questions, wasn't it? Or was it? No, we didn't have number 4 in there. We can go through them again. You're doing really good on time. Can you click down to the next list of people? You want to pick on other people? Or do you want me?
Brett Ashley is next. So here's our first question. You can see my screen? Yes, no? The light?
No,
Okay.
you have to share the other page. Are you trying to share the other page now?
Yes.
So you
You-
want to close out that slideshow on your display on your screen, and then tap on, might be the upper right hand corner.
No, it's this one. Okay,
There you go. Good.
there we go. Study questions. We're on, I called a name out. Now I can't remember
I
it.
think it was Dan. Was it Dan?
Could be. Dan, are you paying it? Are you the one?
I'll answer it if you want. The lightweight
Yes, please.
type anchor is excellent in mud and sand bottoms.
Yes. Number 2 for Missy Mercer. All gear taken collectively that lies between the boat and the anchor is called the
Road.
anchor road. Anchor road.
Anchor road.
Number 3, let's go for Dennis Bellinger. The most widely used material for the anchor line is?
Nylon.
Yes. Number 4, let's go for, I'm at the end of the line here. Let's go for Les Perry. Number 4, 3 kinds of chains used to anchor road off. Les?
You there, Les? You might have to move to the next person.
Dennis Pearson.
BBB, proof coil and high test.
Yes. Is David Ferguson here for number 5? The chain is designated by blank of the material in the links.
Amateur.
Yes. Number 6, Karina. Number
Hello.
6.
The ideal road for most average condition is a combination of nylon line and a short length chain.
Yes. Number 7, let's go for Ray Bellaware. When anchoring under favorable weather and sea conditions and using nylon road, a scope might be considered a minimum.
You there, Ray? I think Ray had trouble with his microphone.
Okay. How about Dennis Pearson?
You already called on him. Pick on somebody else.
That's 5-1.
5 to 1. I'm at the end of my line of people.
All right.
Did we come on Charles Lang?
There you go.
Okay. When number 8, when anchoring, the anchor be lowered when the boat has any. Number 8.
It should not and weigh.
Yes. Number 9.
What did he say for 8?
Okay, for number 8, the anchor, when anchoring, the anchor should be lowered.
Should not
be lowered when the boat has any way on.
or headway.
Headway.
Okay. Number 9. Okay, number 9's tricky. If an anchor drags, the first step in trying to get it to hold is to, let's go with Steve Corris.
That would be to let out more scope.
Yes, play out more scope. Number 10. I'm at the top of the list.
Well, try Deborah Cameron then.
Deborah, are you there? Deborah Cameron? You're muted. Okay, number 9. Number 10, when the chocks, bits, cleats, and other fittings are used on deck, I think they must be blank and reinforced with a blank.
Through bolted and heavy backing plate.
Yes. Number 11 should be who, Bob?
How about what we picked on? Surrender?
Okay, the type anchor traditionally used for permanent moorings is the
Mushroom.
You got it. You got it.
Good job.
Okay,
All right.
I'm turning this over.
Radio. You want to hit stop sharing? We'll stop sharing.
Yes, stop sharing.
Great job. What's that? I don't know where these questions are coming from. They're not the same as the ones in the book. Wisely, I'm not sure which book you have. Those are the questions at the end of chapter 9.
I listed the publication. It's the same one that you sent me.
Okay. Did anyone not have the same questions in their book? I wonder if I sent the wrong book somehow to you.
I've had the correct questions. I've had the correct questions for all the other sections. This is the only one that's wrong so far.
Does anybody else have that problem? What's your first name, Wisely? I'm sorry. What's your first name?
Rick,
Rick, okay. Has anybody else had that question? So maybe it was a problem with the unit that I sent you. I'm not sure how that could be, but no,
No.
the first few questions were from the slideshow. So sorry about that because they don't equal the same as the ones right at the end of the chapter that Rhonda shared with us. So another good reason to have a section of chain near the anchor itself is so that the weight of it will keep the line closer towards the sea bottom so that the flukes don't get loose from the, so they keep dug in. And another thing is, like Rhonda mentioned, is if there's causes for it to chafe, like rocks or anything down there, coral, that the chain won't get cut up as bad as a section of nylon rope was. Good. Other questions? Any other questions? All right, well, let's take a moment here and go down on our reactions and give Rhonda a thumbs up here for spending time with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.
Good. All right, darn it. We only got one more chapter to go. It sure has been fun with you folks, but we're going to take a quick break right now. And we are going to come back at how about 10 after? We'll get done a little early tonight. So everybody wants to go stretch their legs or powder their nose or whatever you need to do, go ahead and do that. And we will see you at 10 after really soon here. Great job.
Just before you go, can you read back number 8?
Rolando, it's should not. So why don't you read your question to me and I'll tell you what the word. So it should not and then headway. So when you're letting the anchor down, you don't want the boat to be moving because number one, you could hit your boat against the anchor and maybe damage it. And number two, you want to lower it down so that as you slowly back away from it, then flukes have a chance to dig in. Because if you're making headway, it's possible that you'll tangle the anchor before it gets to the bottom, and then those flukes won't deploy like you want them to, and you'll end up you'll just drift, which you don't want to have happen.
Okay.
So it should not, and then headway or making way. Someone just said having way, which also works too. So you don't want the boat moving. You don't want it moving either under power or just by the wind or current.
Yeah, I mean, I got it, but I wasn't sure. I was breaking up a little bit, so.
No worries. Yeah, good thing you asked about that one because you probably will see that again.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Are you still here, Rhonda? Where are you? Are you there still, Rhonda? Told her to take a break.
Bob, I'm here, yes.
Okay. Would you be willing to run interference for me and answer any chats that come up during the
Okay, let me turn it on. I just went to the ladies' room.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I don't have any messages in my chats.
Good.
But
Yeah.
I will look for them.
No one sent any yet. So right now we're even Steven. We're doing good. But when people send chats, the thing about it is just like you had that thing popped up in the middle of your display that kind of distracted you. If I was to talk and do chats at the same time, it would be very distracting. So I'm gonna let you.
I've got it out and I'm on the whole screen on my my message. Okay, I'm good.
Good. All right. And after, well, sorry, just wanted to touch base while we had a break there. Thanks for being here for me.
Well, you've asked me over and over again. This is the first time I've really I'm having surgery tomorrow, so I'm
Oh,
kind of, and I made this commitment so long ago. I knew I could do this, but I have a tongue-tied issue here going on.
You're doing great. No, that was, and you added a bunch of other new slides to that. So that was the best I've ever seen Chapter 9 done. So thanks for being here.
Well, I get nervous, and then I'm having back surgery. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh no, this is a good deal. This is a great deal.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that and all the changes, but it's been interesting. You know, we've been teaching together on Zoom for like 5 years.
Wonder if we do one more year if we'll get a toaster. Probably not, huh?
Well, you know, maybe we'll get it right. Who's teaching weather with you?
That is not going to be late until next year sometime. Someone was asking me about that, and I sent them a link to the presentation we did, I think 4 years ago, because we've done it 2 times since then.
Weather was a really hard course when I took it.
Oh, it's still hard. I find it very difficult, and I studied it for, I was in a 5-year program at college. It took me 5 years to get through, and I found it, really challenging, but it's a fascinating topic.
Well, I spend a lot of time I got a lot of books on weather, and it all started with that class, and I spend a lot of time looking at the sky, and sometimes I even take pictures of the different clouds that we see. But
Nice.
that's a hard class, not to dissuade you from the difficulty of navigation.
Yeah, Chaz Haig, he has done a lot of the teaching of that class before. He's very sharp. We had 1 year, we had that TV weatherman, Rick DeMaio, and he was fantastic. And he was obviously, very charismatic. So that was a fun group. That was a fun class.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll try the chat. I've got it open, and I have Brett Ashley made a comment about using the depth finder, that the depth finder has the propeller. Yeah, and to get.
Yeah. Take a look at the Bob. See? Bob, listen, as soon as you start talking, my cat, the Blackbeard, he comes over and he wants to talk to you.
I'd have him come over here, but my wife is terribly allergic to cats. We used to have a puppy. We'll probably get a puppy one of these days. But one of the things we didn't touch on very much in the book, because it's a very old book, but these days people have electronic anchor alarms, which use GPS. And if your vessel does start to drift, it'll go off. Beep, 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 beep. And so that's something when they came out with this back in the 1800s, whenever this class came out, they didn't have that technology, but it's pretty commonplace now for people to have anchor warning lights or anchor warning systems in their boats with the GPS.
Well, that all works on if they have power. If they have no power, then, or they've run out of gas, or, they have a technical difficulty, that's, they're kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we had 2 accidents in New Jersey over the weekend. One was the father in the boat, and he was holding some sort of ponton or something, and he didn't shut down the engine, and his daughter jumped to the boat, and the propeller just shredded her. I mean,
that's so sad.
Yeah, it is. And the second, the boat exploded in Marina, and I mean exploded like a tanker.
Holy cow!
Yeah, but these are those recreational boaters. They are, obviously it's New York and Monmouth County is affluent area, so everybody who have a little bit of money, they buy themselves a boat, and they don't have too much skills, but they have a lot of enthusiasm.
Well, and this is why we teach classes like this, so that you can have this information and impart it. You shall impart it upon your fellow boaters there in Monmouth Beach. All right, my clock says it's time to rock and roll here, so I'm going to fire away. Everyone else, if you don't mind, go ahead and mute yourself and stop your video sharing. And if you do have any questions, Rhonda is going to be able to answer them for us today so that we can keep rock and rolling. This is a shorter chapter, and so that's why I give it to myself, because I'm giving myself a break, right? All right. Chapter 10 of the Auxiliary Seamanship class. Duties and manners. So when you go on to a vessel, it pays to have courtesy. Everybody has to work together on that boat. So it's helpful if you all get along and work as a team. This is something for our people that are in operations. They've learned over and over again, working as a team is very important, because if you have someone who feels like their input is not valued, they might see something, or they might not take action because they're not sure of what their role is. So for auxiliary vessels, when you got smaller vessels like this, you want to make sure that sometimes people have to do more than one job. Let's see what we got going on here. Somebody's making some clicky sounds, and I need to figure out how to keep it from, I don't know if you can hear those sounds. Okay, so sometimes the individual positions of deckhand, radio watch, navigator, engineer, helmsman, and radio watch isn't 6 different people or 7 different people. It's going to be 2 people, and they have to be responsible for more than one duty at a time. I thought the book did a pretty good job going through the different positions. So, but you always have to have someone who is a lookout, watching ahead, and if you have a tow in progress, you need a towing watch. So if you've only got 2 people on the boat, I guess the coxswain has to take on the role of lookout, and somebody else has to watch the tow line to make sure it's not getting fouled and nothing bad's happening behind the vessel. So you have to have someone doing those jobs. So the duties listed in this chapter are not all inclusive. If the coxswain said there's another chore I need for you to do, then you got to do it. Everything in this chapter is taken, you can find out more information about it from the auxiliary training manuals or books. And so the things we're going to talk about in this chapter, they kind of narrow it down, because the only questions you'll be asked in the final exam for this chapter are things that are written in the student study guide. So that's a break, because otherwise you'd be expected to read all these manuals, right? And you don't have to do that. All you have to do is read the student study guide. So without getting into the specific duties required of a coxswain, here are some of the chores that you have to make sure you're ready to do. Not only you have to be ready to be a deckhand, but you also have to be ready to be the radio person, navigator, engineer, lookout, helm person, radar person, and towing watch. It says towing person, towing watch. And the reason for that is to work as a team on the boat. Everybody has to have a sense of what the other people are doing so that they know where their responsibility starts and ends, and the other person's responsibility starts. Rule number 5 of the rules of the road says that the lookout has to be maintained properly. So it's tempting, you know, when something else is happening on the boat, if you have whoever's doing the lookout has some great ideas about however it was supposed to be done. No, their job isn't supposed to be doing the other jobs. All they're supposed to do is keep an eye in front of the vessel and make sure you're not about to run into a break wall or a hazard or something else in the water. So the lookout is a person assigned to do nothing except be an extra set of eyes and ears for the captain. So not only are you looking, but you're also listening. And so no other duties. They say chipping paint on the bow, you know, twiddling your thumbs or whatever. No, your focus has to be watching out and being the lookout. So don't do anything else when you're assigned that job. So, and it's fun because they really emphasize it here, because someone got distracted when they were on an auxiliary crew and they weren't looking in front of the boat and the boat was damaged. So They push this hard. The lookout does absolutely nothing but serve as the eyes and ears of the coxswain. And if you have more than one lookout, sometimes you'll have a sector, like you're expected to watch the front half of the boat, and someone else might be the lookout for anything happening behind the vessel. So you're given a specific area to be the lookout for. If it's a smaller vessel, they might be given to look out for all directions. So you need two, one covering from the bow to the beam, the second from covering the beam to after the stern, as I just stated. So you get larger vessels, everybody has a specific segment of the space around the vessel they are responsible for keeping a close eye on. Whether it has to do with they're looking for a vessel that's been damaged that's in the water, those people are supposed to be looking at their parts of the circle around the boat to make sure that area is being scanned appropriately. The lookout isn't supposed to be handling lines, getting sandwiches, talking on the radio. All they're supposed to do is keep an eyes and ears open. So not only you're looking for other traffic, potential collision items, but anything else that they have to see in that area. So what does it mean they're maintaining a proper lookout? And you'll notice anytime you read about a crash or a collision between two vessels, generally the answer was the lookout did not maintain a proper lookout. So maybe they were looking, out one side of the vessel and weren't looking in front of it, or weren't looking out the other side of the vessel. They're responsible for everything in their area. So the entire purpose of the navigation rules is to keep boats from hitting each other. Collisions at sea. Yeah, keep the collisions from happening. So the first person who's going to be called on the carpet if there's a collision, it's the lookout. Since how can you get in a collision if you had someone watching? So part of the lookout watch is to communicate with the coxswain or the captain and say, hey, there's a hazard here. So let's say they see it and they don't say it. Now they're just as bad off as if they didn't see it in the first place. So these admiralty courts are very formal, and no one is ever happy to go to one because everybody's going to be guilty when they go. So such a decision is held at improper performance of those duties. So the whole goal of having a proper lookout is you don't bump into anything. All right, let's talk about the towing watch. Why is the towing watch so important? It's because those lines behind the vessel are going to be under a lot of strain. And if the tow is not working out correctly, and as it was well described in chapter 5, if the distance behind the vessel is changing between the vessel being towed and the vessel that's towing, and it's going snapping back and forth, that means that they're not on the same page in terms of going up the waves and going down the waves at the same time. And that has a potential for disaster for that vessel being towed to be flipped over. So a towing watch is a very critical thing. And it's dangerous because those tow lines are under a lot of strain. And if one of them snaps loose from either the vessel being towed or the vessel that's towing, it could cause injury. So a tow watch does not handle lines. Again, they're not fooling around with anything else, placing fenders, steering the boat, working on the engine, straightening up the after deck. Your job is to keep an eye on that tow watch to make sure that line going to that other vessel isn't getting tangled or nothing else is bad happening. So you got your eyes glued to the tow. So I hope I explained that clearly. If something is not appropriate, they have to take action immediately, whether it's to communicate with the captain or cut that tow line before another vessel is damaged or their vessel is damaged. So keeping the watch. Specific watches have specialized duties that require an extremely high level of diligence, alertness, and concentration by the individual to keep the vessel out of trouble. So you're not supposed to be doing anything but the job you were told to do. If you decide, well, I want to be specially helpful and make coffee or whatever distraction it could be, now you're calling for trouble to happening, and it's because you weren't doing the job you were supposed to do. So if the coxswain feels in a situation where 2 isn't going to be enough to keep the watch, then he's got to find other people to help, because whether or not they're looking for someone in the water, before he leaves the dock, he has to say, you are responsible for watching this area and you're responsible for watching this area. And you don't get out there and then try to change things up. It'll just confuse your crew. So have a plan before you get off the dock. So yeah, if you have trouble on the water, probably you didn't plan well. So the coxswain needed to think about maintaining the proper lookout. So if there was something that wasn't proper, it means that something happened which is bad, of significance, where somebody didn't communicate or they weren't paying attention. So again, for operational personnel, some damage to the tow may have occurred, or collision between the tow and another object or vessel, or between the tow and the towboat itself occurred, which was not reported in time to prevent the accident from happening by the watch. You know, if they had a very short length of tow line out and they were going up the next wave while the vessel behind them was sliding down, like surfing down the vessel, the wave behind them, and caused a collision, that meant that anchor watch was improper, which is a violation of the rules. Nobody's going to get off scot-free in this situation. You never want to have an accident. So in the verbiage, it's not complicated. Tow is watching properly. And when the coxswain communicates with you, it's not, you know, hey, everything looks okie dokie. There's a specific word being used by the tow watcher, and that is tow is watching properly. Or in the case of a line is tangled, you'd say tow is watching improperly, which means that the line is getting tangled or something else bad is happening to the boat behind you. All right, what does a deckhand do? And you will see this again. The primary job of a deckhand is to handle lines. So this is one of the first things that you learn when you start out in training on operations. In addition, they also have to keep the working area clean, organized, and ship shape. So when someone is passing through the deck area, they don't trip over whatever's happening there. So you're also keeping things tidy. Make certain all the gear is ready for immediate use, readily accessible. So also to keep an eye on all fittings and fixtures for possible breakage or loose fastenings, like if you had a cleat or something like that. You're paying attention to the deck to make sure it's all ship shape. And keep the coxswain advised of the status of the working area. You know, if there was some fuel or something leaking onto the working area, you'd want the coxswain to know it was happening right away. So you're going to take the AUX comm course, hopefully one of these days if you haven't already. So normally listening to the radio is going to be whoever's driving the boat. The coxswain will usually handle the radios. What if you have a separate person who's listening to the radios because whatever the deck around the coxswain is loud and they're in an area where the wind isn't blowing so they can hear someone calling? The radio watch would have to be able to efficiently operate a handheld VHF or a console radio. So they know the pro words, how to talk on the radio, what is expected when someone calls them, learn the phonetic alphabet and how it is used. If you're trying to tell someone that there's a hazard in the water and they say it's a log, and they say, is it a hog? Well, you'd say Lima Oscar Golf, so that they could know if they couldn't understand what you're trying to say because there's interference or something with the radio. You also have to know your phonetic alphabet so you can make things clear if there's confusion. You have to understand the Coast Guard communication procedures, and it would be helpful to be a certified radio watch standard when you're on the boat. But when you're learning how to operate a radio and you're on a vessel that's doing operations, you don't have to already have your radio watch standing training. You can learn it as you go, but you will have to know how to operate that radio. And so it's very helpful to have completed the AUX comm course, which we teach occasionally via Zoom. All right, now getting a little more complicated here. You're the navigator. You're out on the water and you're conducting an operation. As the navigator, you should be able to read and be able to efficiently use all navigation charts, depths, understand where you're coming and going from your initial place, how to perform compass course calculations, fixed positions, plot courses, headings, bearings, and tracks, set and drift, that type of stuff. Now you have to be able to compute your estimated time of arrival, estimated times of departure. You're running fixes, course corrections, and set and drift calculations. Know and understand the complete buoy systems for your waters. What's going to warn you about hazards in the water? Do you know what they look like, those particular buoys? Those are something a navigator must know and be a master of the rules of road. Nav rules 95 is a good test to take if you've studied your rules. And also be proficient in both pilotage and navigation. Getting more complicated here in terms of mechanics, vessel engineer. Most auxiliary vessels are either outboards or unsophisticated inboards, which don't require a huge amount of training. However, every crew member needs to be ready to assume these duties. What do you do if the vessel stops? How do you start the vessel? How do you slow the vessel? How do you turn the vessel? Those are things that the engineer should be competent and able to do and operate the engines and to make sure they're well taken care of. You know, keep an eye on the temperatures, make sure they're not overheating. So all of a sudden you're not adrift out there. If needed, the engineer should be able to make necessary repairs within reason underway. You're not going to be changing out engines when you're out there on the water, but small things that you can do, whether it's duct tape any leaks that you have, that type of thing, or you must be able to make proper diagnosis of malfunctions or potential engine failures. Is there fuel overflowing into your engine? Is there, an indication that you're having a rough running engine? Maybe you need to reduce your power. And also adequately keep the coxswain informed of the status of your power plants. What does a helmsperson do? So that person is responsible to hold the helm under the direction of the coxswain or owner or the captain. When you're guiding the vessel, make sure it stays on course, right? The helmsperson. Be proficient in maneuvering the vessel's safety in performance of necessary duties of the mission under all weather and sea conditions. Whether it's taking the waves at a 45-degree angle or reducing speed to enter the complicated anchorage at a slower speed to prevent any accidents. The helmsperson steers the boat. They're not in command, and they don't do just whatever they feel like whenever they feel like. You're working as a team. The coxswain will tell you what needs to happen and when. So they listen to whatever the coxswain tells them to do, and they comply. Must be thoroughly familiar with the vessel, its power plants, and its behavior under almost every kind of situation. Different vessels operate differently. You will have a different impact when you add power to some vessels. It may cause a change in direction, especially if you're in reverse. So you have to be prepared to do that. And similar vessels may just operate differently, and that's where being familiar with the vessel is very critical. What's a radar watch? So one thing with this, it's a highly specialized watch requiring specialized training and experience. So they have to be able to efficiently operate the particular type of radar on the vessel. So one thing is, well, do we only train when the visibility is bad? No, the best time to train on how to run the radar is in good weather. So now you get to look at on the radar screen what you would be seeing in the event of bad weather. So let's say it was a foggy day, but you've already trained on how to use the radar on nice days, and you know what you're seeing on the radar, and that's the best time to learn how to use your radar. So they should possess the necessary technical training and knowledge to enable you to intelligently and correctly interpret what you see on the radar scope. So different radars are operated differently. So just because you've operated radar on a different boat, if this is a different unit, it may require different inputs and different adjustments for you to understand what you're seeing on that radar scope. Mostly you're trying to avoid a collision, right? So getting on the boat is when you're underway is not the time to start reading the books to try to figure out how to use the radar. If you're planning on using the radar on a mission, you should already know how it operates before you need it in a pinch, like heavy rain or fog or nighttime. So this gets into some of the niceties of operating on a vessel. So these are boating manners. So when you're out there on the vessel, you're showing your courtesy by watching your weight continuously. Those of you who live in areas near inlets know that docks and slips often can be impacted by people running through at high speeds. And it can do a lot of damage if someone is going at high power in a no wake area. So you can injure someone or damage property. So also think about how much noise you're making. So keep a close eye on your anchor when you are at anchor when it's in use. Inform your guests of how to use all the emergency gear. Do they know where to find the life jackets? And this, of course, is hopefully everybody on an operations mission will already know this, but in general, just anytime you're on a boat, make sure everybody's got the proper clothing or uniform. So make sure if you have everyone coming out there, in, you know, if it's going to require heavy weather gear, that they have that heavy weather gear with them in their ODUs. And also make sure your vessel is clean and in good repair. So something hopefully all of you are well aware of is we're not going to pollute the water that we're trained to protect. So make sure there's no your vessel has the oil discharge placard, 26 feet and longer. It's got to have that. Be certain your garbage placard is properly displayed at all times, and it says right on there whose responsibility is to make sure nobody's throwing garbage over the side of the boat. What's your trash disposal plan? And those can be fairly simple. If you've never heard of a trash disposal plan, it says that, you know, it could be like 4 lines. The captain is responsible for trash disposal. All plastics or other disposable items will be kept on the boat. At the end of a sail or at the end of a mission, all trash will be removed by the captain. It doesn't have to be real complicated. You could Google online and find more detailed trash disposal plans. But just so everybody in the boat knows, and it'll usually be in the galley somewhere, you're not just throwing garbage off the side of the boat. Also, most older vessel or most newer vessels do not have ways to empty the heads off the side of the boat for the recreational vessels. They have holding tanks. Older vessels actually had a Y valve, which would allow gray water to be squirted off the side of the boat. But over the years, those environmental rules have changed. So we don't squirt, you know, foul water off the side of the boat anymore. And in the old days, they would have a Y valve, and it would always have to be set to holding tank. And many years ago, when they're out at the deeper, you know, greater distances from shore, you would have a Y valve and you could switch it over to squirt stuff off the side of the boat. But you don't see that on modern recreational vessels. So make sure they know how to use the head, and make sure they don't throw any trash. Communicate with your passengers before you leave the dock. This is how we do things. We do not pollute the oceans and rivers. Okay, well, you're getting a chance to go onto the United States Coast Guard vessel Eagle, the Bark Eagle. What is the proper way to do this? Now, some of you have never had the opportunity to go on Coast Guard vessels, and doing this properly will make us look good and you look good too. So you come up to the bottom of the gangway and you walk up the gangway, and then you turn, face the stern of the vessel, and smartly render a hand salute to the national ensign. And then you turn and smartly salute the officer of the deck. Request permission to come aboard, ma'am, or sir, as would be appropriate. And they will say permission granted. And, you know, you would, release your salute. You wait for them to salute back before you lower your salute. And you do the exact same thing as you're getting off. And if you do this with the appropriate level of demeanor, it makes the Coast Guard Auxiliary look good. And we're constantly under strain to look professional to our gold side team shipmates. Because if we go up there and we don't look like we know what we're doing, it makes them feel that they're not working with a very professional group in the auxiliary. So we want our team to look sharp when we get on and off the boat. And with that said, we're going to go right into the review questions. Bob Hollis, the primary duty of a deckhand is to what?
Line handling.
Line handling. So I think mine will work. Yep. Booyah. Number 2, how about Arthur Sullivan? The navigator must be able to
Fix position and plot a course.
bang on. Rolando, how about number 3? When boarding a Coast Guard vessel, you should render the hand salute to the officer of the deck. You there, Rolando?
D.
That's not Rolando.
Yeah. Repeat that again.
The question is, if you're going to get on board a Coast Guard vessel, and first when boarding a Coast Guard vessel, you should render the hand salute to the officer of the deck. When do you need to do that? Want to take a guess?
I'm breaking up. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up.
Breaking up.
All right, Ashley, how about number 3 here? You there, Ashley? Which one do you think it is? A, B, C, or D?
D, immediately after you have rendered your salute to the national ensign.
Hello?
And go straight down, below the cap and straight down. Right up.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Orlando, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Want to try the next one? Number 4, close to the top of the good manners list should be?
Let me see. Close to the top of the managed list.
Good manners, right. How do you show you're a good boater, a good manners boater?
This thing is blank. Can't see the answer. Give me 1 second. Somebody, okay, it's clear now.
All right, 5 seconds, Rolando, and we go on.
Close to the should be the watch nose.
No, they want you to watch your wake.
Watch your wake.
Yeah.
Watch your wake.
Watch your wake. That's right. Otherwise, you can encounter some very expensive events. Deborah Cameron, how about number 6? Every vessel shall maintain a proper lookout. You there, Deborah? Can you hear me, Deborah?
I don't know why this thing is messing up, man.
Can you hear me, Deborah? No? How about James Richard? Can you hear me, James?
Can you hear me now? This is Deborah Cameron.
Okay, Deborah, what do you think it is? A, B, C, or D?
Number 6, every vessel should maintain a proper lookout. A, from sunrise to sunset. B, at all times. C, by all crew members, or D, in close quarter situations. That would be B, at all times.
Yeah, you don't get to pick when you're going to be watching out. You have to be ready. Jennifer, how about 7? You there, Jennifer?
Yes, the helmsperson is always C, the person assigned to steer the vessel.
Right on. Good. All right, the helmsperson always. And that's not. Yeah, they can ship this one. Doesn't like that one for some reason. Oh, so sorry, there's a typo. That should be C. You are correct. Good job. All right. Who hasn't? You there, Ray? Can you unmute yourself for a second, Ray? We had trouble with this earlier. No? Dennis, how about number 8?
Let's see here.
Dennis P. I'm sorry.
Keep the coxswain advised as to the status of the tow at all times.
Good. Dennis, how about Dennis B, number 9? Belanger.
Sure. If you are working as a radio watchstander on board a patrol vessel on patrol, you should unless you should. I'm guessing C, but that's not a complete answer.
Well, this kind of gets to the bigger question, which is, when are you done doing your job? And the answer is, you're done doing your job when you're told you're done doing your job. You don't just say, I'm kind of tired. I kind of could use a cheeseburger. I'm just going to get up and wander off. That's not how the game is played. All right. Who else do we have? Bob Hollis, how about number 10?
I would say A.
Good. To be able to do that. Uh-oh. C. Electromagnetic compass courses. If you're assigned to the Navigator's Watch, should be.
Oh, it's D. You
I'd
just
say
went
D.
down.
Yeah,
How
I
about
couldn't.
D?
Yeah, I couldn't see the D before your thing covered it up.
Sorry. Yeah, no, that's a technical issue on my part. Good. And that's the end of chapter 10. Now we're going to go through, if you are willing and able to go through the practice questions in your book. How about number 1? Read the whole question, Mandava.
Name 2 duties of a deckhand that's watch the lines and fenders.
Good. And they're also looking for line handling, fender stowing. So put away the fenders and tow watch. So you're on the right path. Jerry, how about number 2?
The navigator must be able to determine position and maintain a plot of course.
Right on. Jim Whipple, how about number 3?
The crewman who takes care of the engines is called the engineer.
Good. Bob Hollis, number 4. You there, Bob? Deborah Cameron, how about number 4?
Number 4 is what crew duty is required by law, and that's the lookout.
Right on. Good. Deborah Cameron, how about number 5? You there, Deborah? Yep.
Yes, I'm here. I do not have the book in front of me.
You could-
if possible, I'd read it.
That's okay. Alice Williams, how about number 5?
Number 5, as a lookout, you're responsible for your assigned sector.
Yeah. It was just busybody. No, you look at your sector, not the other ones. Jacob, how about number 6?
How many degrees do you move your eyes each second when scanning? About 10 degrees.
Good. And you got that straight out of the book. That's excellent. Because if you're not maintaining a good scan, you're really not actually looking at anything. Even if you're moving your head around, if you don't focus and then stop and focus and then stop and then focus and stop, you're not really going to see anything. You're just moving your eyes back and forth. You're not doing a good job. Good. Manuel, how about number 7?
Number 7. Do you look directly on the horizon for night scanning? No, you are 5 to 10 degrees above the horizon.
Good. Excellent. Right on. How about Michelle for number 8? You there, Michelle? Madura Griffin?
Yeah, I'm just trying to unmute myself. 8, binoculars are used for identification and not for scanning.
Yeah, if you were trying to do this with your binoculars, it would be so hard for you to pick up something. So it sounds like you'd be doing that just like in the old movies, but really what you're doing is looking here, and then when you see something, then you'll bring up them binoculars so you can have a better look at whatever it is. Good answer. Ramesh, how about number, what are we on? Number 9.
9.
You there, Ramesh? Number 9. Brett Ashley, how about number 9?
Number 9, you must remain as lookout until relieved.
Yeah, you hang in there till you're relieved. Good. Charles Lang, how about number 10?
Lookouts should remain alert and give full attention to your duties.
Right on. No taking a nap. Arthur Sullivan, number 11.
Lookouts in fog rely a great extent on sound.
Their ears. Right on. Serinda, how about number 12?
Number 12, steering may be by compass or by reference to objects.
Excellent. Karena, how about number 13?
The helmets will repeat all commands.
Right. So they know exactly what you said. When you get told something, you repeat it back. That way you know that they heard. Bob Parrish, number 14.
The term meet her means stop the turn.
Right. And so some people are like, well, as you're in a turn, if you're the helmsman, you're in a turn, do you wait until you're on that heading and then take the turn out? Well, no, the boat's going to keep going and you're going to blow through it. So as you're getting closer, you start to take the turn out a little bit more until you're right on course, which you want to be, if that makes any sense. Rolando, how about number 15? Rolando Durant?
15. We skipped 14.
I think that one was stop the turn so as to not overshoot the new course. Meet her, you know?
We didn't do number 14, right? Okay, so
Yes,
number,
Yeah, that was the answer to 14. To stop the turn so as to not overshoot the new course meter.
I don't have that for number 14. Number 14, I have the term meet her.
Right.
That was number 14 question. All right, so I go to number 15.
And that's the answer.
What is the answer for number 14?
It's to stop the turn so as
Right.
to not overshoot the course.
Right. I do have that. Number 15 is radar is another form of lookout.
Right on. Excellent. I might be skipping around here. Forgive me. Dennis Pearson, how about number 16?
Radar is a great navigational aid in times of darkness and reduced visibility.
Absolutely. Missy, how about number 17?
The tow watch must not stand in line with the tow line in case it breaks and snaps back.
Good. James Richards, how about 18? You there, James?
Yeah, are you legally responsible? I pass on that one.
Dennis Bellinger?
Yes,
You're legally responsible for your wake.
Wake, yeah. Your wake, if you're going through a channel and it says no wake and you're going fast and you do damage, you're on the hook, you're paying. Jennifer, how about number 19?
When anchoring near other boats, check for the scope of another road.
Clearance.
Yeah, you want to stay clear. Yeah, they say clearance. But remember, so you're anchored here, and if the wind changes, your line is attached to the boat, which is attached to the anchor. And it's the 360-degree circle around there. If the wind starts to change direction and there's a hazard over here and you're over here and the wind changes, well, you're going to hit that hazard, So you have to worry about your clearance. Richard S., how about number 20?
Okay, it says it is illegal to discharge pollutants into the water.
Correct. Dan Lippman, number 21.
What is a holding tank? They are tanks that hold toilet effluent or other drainage.
Right on. Tuesday, how about 22?
When boarding a Coast Guard vessel, salute the national ensign, request permission to board from the officer of the day.
Right on. 10 out of 10. Last one, Mike Brummett. (23) Michael, number 23.
Remove your cap when in the wardroom of a commissioned Coast Guard vessel.
Right, and this is something that didn't pop up in the slides. So you probably read this in your books, but if you don't, I'll remind you. You don't just wander into the officer's mess. The officer's mess is a privileged location. So unless you are specifically told by the captain to come into that area, that's officers' area. You don't just wander in and grab a cheese sandwich off the counter. That's not your area. And that can happen if you have someone who is not familiar with the manners of being on a Coast Guard vessel. That would be inappropriate for you to just wander in there. All right, team, you are done with your study. Now it's time to take the exam. So once you finish that exam, if you don't have it already, let's see if you can see the red one on here with the stars on it. That's the auxiliary specialty device. Once you've taken your first AUX class, then you know that you will be qualified to wear that ribbon. Yeah, all right, team, you can turn your cameras on. So Deborah, what was the story again? You didn't have, what was it again? You didn't have your book with you?
I have my book with me. I wasn't sure exactly where you were at that point, but you went back, from what I gather, is what we had just talked about.
Right on. Did you have any
read the question and then gave the answer, yes?
Oh, good. I did. Did you have any questions, anything that you didn't understand?
No, it was really good to have everybody just kind of go along with what we were doing there. Probably the only thing that I personally am going to go back through, because I just know, I mean, I've got my knot, I got my rope for that, but is the engines. I want to make sure I have a better understanding of that. So I figure I'll go back and look over that on my own for self-study.
Good. Yeah. Did anybody else have a lot of questions about engines? Because that's something that we went through kind of quick. Obviously, we have many different types of vessels in the Coast Guard Auxiliary and many different types of engines, inboards, outboards, boats with engines that are from automobiles that are in larger vessels. Any other questions about that? So again, we're doing really good time wise, another 9 minutes here. If you have questions on how to take the final exam, I do encourage you to take that soon. Some of you have already taken it here. Job. Mandava, go ahead. Do you have a question, Mandava?
No, I don't, sorry.
Oh, no worries. So it's going to be a matter of you're not really sure if you're 100% ready. You think you're going to be okay, but you're not sure. Take a crack at that test. There's no penalties for trying it. And if the first time you take it, you have some brain farts, you don't get through. There are tests in the auxiliary that I've taken on the National Testing Center that I really struggled with. This MSEP class that we just finished last month, that was a hard exam, actually 2 months ago now. That was a real hard exam. I did not pass that. It took me 3 tries. So please, if you haven't taken the test yet, get yourself ready to take it, and you don't have to wait. Now that you've taken this chapter, if you have the review questions, so you will take your books with you, and as you're taking the questions on the national testing site, you're going to see a lot of those again. Others, you may want to have your Chapman's right handy ready to dig into, but you're going to be surprised how well you do if you've sat through all these sessions. If you've watched the recordings, you're going to be surprised how well you do. I'm going to stop recording here.